But for today's talk, somebody showed me an old email about someone asking for some possible talk titles, and one kind of stuck in my brain, in my mind. I thought it would be very useful and can fashion a nice talk on this subject. It started off by talking about spiritual bypassing. When there's any problems in your life, physical problems, problems in the world, problems in the company in which you live, I say that. I live in the Buddhist Society of WA Inc. I can't escape from it, don't want to. And also just the family you're in, or the situation, the body you're in. And so, is it called really good to call this bypassing if you actually employ the beautiful means of your spirituality, your wisdom and your kindness, your compassion, to deal with these problems? Even actually thinking this is called bypassing. It's not bypassing, this is kind of the direct route. The way you should have been dealing with the difficulties and problems of life to begin with. It's not emotional avoidance, it's understanding one thing. There are basically two types of emotions in this world. And to think that all emotions are good or all emotions are bad, that kind of judgmentalism never made much sense to me. What did make sense is, first of all, you must not be afraid of emotions, acknowledge them. Once you acknowledge them, and being kind to them, then you learn from them. That's why this idea of opening the door of your heart to whatever your experience in this world, in this life, you learn so much from them. Yes, okay, I was missing for a few weeks. It's only because you're trying to be as kind as you possibly can to others. And I make mistakes too, so I got myself all exhausted, overly so. But there's something about exhaustion, or real big tiredness. There's a way as a monk you've learned how to understand it. First of all, to be with it. Not to try and escape from it by, I don't know, I've never taken any of these big energy drinks like Red Bull or anything else. The only energy drink which I've ever taken is actually cups of tea. I don't think that's the same intensity. But nevertheless, I enjoy my cups of tea. And I think the reason is I enjoy my cups of tea because somebody showed me a video. They downloaded this video and sent it to me of this little baby drinking a cup of tea in UK. And it's, it's so small, couldn't really speak, but his mother gave him, some of her tea to drink and started drinking it. Do you remember seeing that? Yeah. And then the mother thought it had enough, so it was mother's tea. So the mother took it away, and then the baby started crying. So the mother gave the tea back again, and straight away the baby was quiet, and then took it away again. That's how I got so addicted to tea. Not my fault, probably my mother's fault as well. Not really an addiction, I've given out for periods of time. But what it was understanding just how sort of we respond to some of the difficulties we face in life. First of all, we need to acknowledge our emotions, understand them. And the next thing, I always wanted to make sure to distinguish the negative ones from the positive ones. There's so many negative emotions in this world. Of course, the big one is anger and fear. And if you don't know this, but I was struck that in our monks' rules, that if anybody is elected to a position of authority, such as, well, she's got our president, she's just over here, if you're elected to any position of authority, you must make sure you never act out of wanting, out of desire, or out of ill will, out of stupidity. I can understand those things. But it's also said you should never act out of fear. I love that insight because there's so much of a person's life. I don't know about your life as well. My life, I've seen this being confronted by fear many times. Do you really want to act out of fear? If you act out of fear, it all goes wrong. You're not telling the truth, you're hiding the reality, and there's never any progress. It just comes to mind, I never planned to say anything about this, but that time when we had bhikkhuni ordination. And afterwards, that was quite a move which we made over here with all the support of you and all the monks over here. But some monks, some in other parts of the world thought that was not appropriate. I can't understand that, but nevertheless, it came to one of those points in your life. I hope you come to this point as well, because a great place, of finding insight into how you work. And that was when, going over to the place Wat Bapong, and in front of so many other monks who didn't really understand what had gone on, they just, after 2 or 3 hours of discussion, then they asked me, they said, if you admit you made a mistake, if you say that those 4 nuns at the time, now bhikkhunis, if they're not real bhikkhunis, then all will be forgiven, but just don't ever do that again. And these were my friends, people I've grown up with as monks, I had some really good times together with, some stories to share. And even so, I had to make sure that these were also 4 women who we had given this ordination to, and we could find nothing wrong in the words of the Buddha, nothing wrong in the kindness which we were showing to people, nothing wrong in how we were taking sort of a traditional Buddhism which had no real place for the females, and actually moving it forward, actually doing something. So they said, well, if you don't agree to renounce those 4 women, then you're no longer part of our community. And the point was, I knew what I was doing, why I was doing it. There was nothing wrong with it. And so you had a choice there, just to follow what other people are doing when you know it was wrong, or stand your ground and be kind of excommunicated. It's a wonderful moment which I'll never forget in my life, and that's why I hope each one of you have that choice, to do what is right or do what is easy. And I was very happy with at the time I thought I would never be able to live with myself. I'm supposed to be a monk. Even at that time I was kind of a leader. I wanted to be a leader who actually does lead, doesn't just follow, just actually help others, instead of just being more of the same. So I decided, okay, they're 4 bhikkhunis. It's wonderful to see just how they developed in this world. You got sort of, I don't know if you know that Ayya Nirodha, one of them, Elizabeth, she was before. She's getting really old now, but she's over in Sydney. And we've got Ayya Seri and Ayya Hasapanya over here. Ayya Wayama passed away, but she passed away in bhikkhuni robes. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And so those are the sorts of things you should never sort of make a decision out of personal benefit, or out of ill will towards anybody, or out of fear. And that's the same with you, what you do with your body. Never act out of fear. Act out of kindness, out of courage, fearlessness. You're not harming other people, you're not acting out of stupidity. These are the difficult emotions which always make wrong decisions, when people just do things because it's the easy way or because there's something in it for them, or because they're afraid of being criticized. I don't know why I keep getting into these stories, old stories, which I don't know if any of you remember them. But apparently, that people keep asking me. I'm a monk, I don't know very much about the world, but you do get asked, well, what about things like that war in the Middle East? It's going on for such a long time, especially with Israel. Apparently they have had a ceasefire now. I really hope it holds. But I remember many, many years ago, after the 6-Day War, they called it a 6-Day War. It didn't last for 6 days, did it? Well, I don't know how many years. But I remember just one thing which did inspire me in that conflict was it was the president of Egypt at the time, President Sesatha. Yeah, he decided, and I love the way he did this. Instead of having a cabinet meeting, instead of trying to sort of win over everybody, he was a president, so he just got in a plane. Hardly anyone else knew what he was up to, and he flew to Jerusalem or somewhere, Tel Aviv or whatever, the capital, and just had, the president of Egypt just arrived, so the president or the prime minister of Israel had to meet him, and they talked together without advisors. Sometimes it's nice when you have a meeting just without advisors telling you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Because then actually you can go to deeper places, in your mind, in your heart. And there's much more truth in those places than when there's all these other advisors telling you how you should behave or what you should do. You're coming from places of kindness, and that actually worked for a while. And I expected this would happen, and it did. That poor president of Egypt, he was assassinated a short time afterwards. If there's something worth being assassinated for, that was it, giving peace a chance. Did that out of, not acting out of fear, but trying something new. I wish there was more people who were like that in this world. But nevertheless, when we know the emotions which are, going to be harmful, like acting out of fear, or acting out of personal desire, or how we can... I don't know why anybody wants to be a politician in the first place. If anybody ever wants to stand for Parliament, I think they need a bit of a head examination. Please apologise for any of you who are standing in parliamentary elections. We had one previous president of our Buddhist Society of West Australia, and you all probably know him, that's Sol Hanna. And he actually stood on one of the for the Green Party in one of the seats in Perth. I'm very happy he lost. Well, that would be really tough to actually have such a position of leadership. But anyhow, going away from the politics to just your emotions, your leadership of your family, of your office, of your Buddhist society, of your career. What are you actually doing? How are you doing it? And that's one of the other things which I mentioned to the monks, is somebody actually asked me, can you also speak about this? He said it's learning also to the positive emotions, like trust, kindness and happiness, to value those so much that that's what you deliberately put in to everything you have to do in this world, as best you possibly can. He asked in particular for things like your relationships, your family, your marriage, whatever else you're doing. For me it's the monastery in which I live. I don't just sit, actually I do a lot, just sit there. Don't just sit there. That was actually one of Thich Nhat Hanh's sayings which inspired me. Don't just do something, sit there. There's too much doing. But if we do, because we feel we need to sometimes, it's not spiritual bypassing or just neglecting other duties. you find that we really need to do that for everybody, including yourself. And sometimes what you do for yourself, what you do for others, tends to meld all together. I've told that so many times, for people who have relationships. If, say, you get married, it's not about the husband, it's not about the wife. I love doing that. You've all heard me say this before, but it's such a deep teaching. I love repeating it. When I do a marriage ceremony, look at the bride. They're all a little bit crazy. And to this day, I still don't know why they invite a monk to do their ceremony. What the heck do I know about marriage? I haven't had a girlfriend since I was 51 or 52 years ago. I think things have changed since I was doing that sort of stupid stuff. But nevertheless, people say, no, come on, can you give us a blessing for the marriage? And I try my best. So that's one of the things I do. Look at the bride first of all, in her eyes. She always listens. There's 2 times as a monk, people will always listen to you. One is in a marriage, because it's important for them. The other one is funerals. It's amazing how many people, they keep looking at you when you're doing a funeral, because they know that if they don't pay attention, the person they've gone to the funeral floor, they might come and just disappoint them afterwards. The ghost. It does happen, Okay, one of my stories. This is a true story. There's one lady many years ago. She was Thai, married to a Chinese man, and she would really love, the holy water which I would give. Unfortunately, for the wrong reasons. Because you're getting so sick, I knew she was close to death. She had a whole bucket of holy water once a week. 11 litres. I was really happy to help, kind heart. But then I found out what she was using it for. Because this guy called up and said, is that Ajahn Brahm? I said, yes, speaking on the telephone. Oh, I want to order some holy water, please. How much? So I never charged for anything. The holy water was free. No, it isn't. I get it from this Thai lady, and she's charging a bit much these days. It's very good stuff. I want to get it from the source. And that's where I found out. I found out where she was getting the holy water from, and why. She was making a small fortune from it. But anyway, eventually, it can't be so critical. It's just was always kind to this woman, and she was a very good woman. Sometimes you're just a little bit sort of strange. But anyway, when she really got sick, she came up to me and said, look, I can't trust my husband. That's what she said. So she said, Ajahn Brahm, can you do the funeral, pay for the funeral, organize it for me, and then half of the little house which we share together will bequeath to the BSWA. And I thought, I can't do that. I'm not a business monk. I can't do deals like that. But then I said, you should speak to the Buddhist Society. So I spoke to the treasurer, and when he found out how much the house was worth, he said, that's a good deal. I can't say that, so we did it. So when it came to her funeral, we organised it, and the BSWA paid for it, and half of her estate she left to the BSWA. But after the funeral was finished, I remember asking the husband, I said, do you know where the trust deed is? He said, no, I don't know where it is. It's disappeared. I can't find it. So, we are Buddhist after all. So we said, okay, never mind. If it comes up, let us know. We're not going to go and sue him. But anyway, I never forget, one morning at Bodhinyana Monastery, they lived over in Maylands. One morning, early in the morning, a taxi came. You know how much it costs to have a taxi from Maylands all the way to Serpentine? It's a lot of money because you have to pay both ways, because the taxi driver is not going to sort of get a fare from that part of the world into town. So it was expensive, and he wanted to see me straight away. Say, "Yeah, how can I help?" And he said, Ajahn Brahm, I found the trust deed. Here's the will. Here's the will. I said, "You could have just called up, and we'd have come in the next time, in a couple of days' time, and picked up." No, I have to give it to you now. Now, why now? Because my wife came last night as a ghost. George, that was his name. Really good, George, you know where that will is. Give it to Ajahn Brahm, now! That's a true story, this is not made up. He had no choice. He got up and put some clothes on as soon as he possibly could, called a taxi, and came straight to Bodhidharma Monastery. And you could see the relief on his face when he handed me the will. No, he was safe. That's one of the reasons why I always be careful of people when they die. You may be able to ignore them when they're alive, but my goodness, you better do the right thing. Even when I say that with a lot of fun and joy, and they're both really good people. So, but it was true, that's what happens. So anyhow, that when you make decisions, make sure you act out of kindness and goodness, and put fun into all the stories, whatever you do in life. Even I've told you, just on the subject of not just marriages, I haven't finished that one yet. I look at the wife, and I said, once you're married, you must never think of yourself. Isn't that the case? Oh, come on. And then I look to the husband, you must not think of yourself. They always say, yeah. And then, still looking at the husband, and from this moment on, I say, you must not think of her, your partner, your wife. Now that's the interesting thing, because you don't need to read people's mind, you read their faces. And every time I do that, if you don't know what I'm up to, they all think, especially the in-laws or the family all coming, then, why have you invited this guy for? He's mad, he's crazy. And then I take it just a little further, then I say to the wife, from this day on, I don't want you to think of her, or him, whichever it is, what I'm saying. Once you're married, you must not think of yourself, you must not think of your partner. And I'd love it to pause there. Because a lot of times people trust me enough to think, there's something in it they haven't seen. What is a riddle? He's not mad, he's not crazy. There's something he's expressing here by this little riddle, which is really important. And I give them that answer, and I hope you understand that answer too. You must not think of your partner, you must not think of yourself. From this day on, you must only think of us. The third option. Why do I have to be a monk unmarried to understand that? A lot of you guys don't. In a family, friends, who's the most important person in the family? It's us, not one person. Who's the head of the family? Us. Okay, so who's the most important person in the Buddhist Society of Western Australia? Who said you? You're my friend, you get free membership for 2 lives. No, that's wrong. It's us. It always has to be about us, our community. And it's lovely that people join up as members, but even if you're not a member, you're still part of us. And that's really important, to have that perception about us, a community. It's not just the guy who sits in front of the microphone every day. If not here, over in Bodhinyana or somewhere, I'm always in front of a microphone. Microphone is my good friend. Hi, Mike. That's when you understand about what a community is all about and the beautiful emotions which come up from that. And even with your body as well. Which is the most important part of your body? You can't say that one part is more important than the other part. It's all about us working together. Every part of my body, as best I possibly can. And then you find you can kind of be healthy. As best you possibly can. But what is health? Are you always going to live this life with no pain anywhere at all? What's one of the other things which I love teaching and love remembering? Sometimes I tell people, it's really nice advice whenever you go and see your doctor. How many of you go to the doctor and say, there's something wrong with me? I advise you, even if you're close to death, don't say that. When you go and see your doctor before the operation you're going to have, he said, tell them, there's something right with me, doctor. I'm really sick again. Why do we add negativity to what's part of life? Sickness. Being close to death. See if you can add sort of joy, kindness, fun to whatever you have to experience in life. Can you do that? This is true, those people who know the story, they can go and corroborate it. This was confirmed to me by the doctor who actually was this Dr. Quesri Dhammananda. He did come here quite a few times. Sri Lankan monk, lived in Malaysia, a really sort of interesting monk. We had some great discussions. He was the one who once told me, said, I have a lot of trouble with people being sick over in Malaysia because a lot of them, their children, because they're from the Chinese part of Malaysia, a lot of their children become Christians and they insist on going to their bedside when they're about to die, when grandma's about to die, and converting them to being a Christian. They think, if you're a Buddhist, you can go to some hell realm. I can't have that for my mother or my father, I can't do that. And it was so difficult stopping, the grandma's children and the pastor coming in. So I told him, he really liked this piece of advice. Look, if tell all of your students, no matter what race they are, whether they're Sri Lankan, Western, Chinese, whatever, if some of the relations come in and they try to convert you before you died, from being a Buddhist to being a Christian, please convert. That's the only way to get rid of them. As soon as you convert, then they'll just go out of the room. And once they go out of the room, then you can convert back again. Buddhang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami. You can convert one way, you can convert the other way. Why not? Just make sure you get Buddhang dhammang sanghang saranang gacchami out of your mouth before you really cark it. He thought that was very funny. Well, I did too. So that's adding something positive to whatever you're doing in life. And it's actually, that's what you add to life, to the emotions. You make the emotional world a much more beautiful, positive, wonderful experience. And I think that's something which Buddhism has always been very strong about for so many years, centuries I would say. Yes, we have difficulties in life. Yes, even, this was quite a few years ago, but a few of them were here when we had our big bushfire over in Bodhinyana Monastery. People are complaining about the heat last week. This time, This year I was there 46.5 degrees in Bodhinyana Monastery before the fire came. It soon warmed up. At the time, it was the hottest year ever recorded in Bodhinyana Monastery. There was another, couple of weeks later, it got a little bit hotter. So it's now down as the second hottest year ever at that time. And that's when the fire came. Oh my goodness, what could we do? There's only one thing we could do. We had to evacuate. And when we evacuate, you saw the flames. They were so huge. And the trees never burned. They exploded. Boom! Like a bomb going off. That's why, because it was so hot, all those trees, full of eucalypt oil and other oils, that had all evaporated, mixed it with the oxygen, and became like this explosive mix. Boom! And as I was going out, because we had to, it's amazing what happens. I love telling these stories. It's not all gloom and doom. I remember there's one of our members staying there, and I don't know why he decided to do this. The last moment, after wetting down all the areas, we were in the main hall, that was just to stay there until the main fire front had passed, and then we were supposed to go back and fight the fire. But then this firefighting person, one of the officials, came and said, get out now. So we followed his orders and evacuated. We were all prepared, all the cars were there. You've got to be careful, because please I love telling these stories, how stupid you can be when you panic. First of all the cars in front of the hall, they were all parked with the nose facing the hall, and so you'd have to reverse to get out. So I had to tell them all, I turned them around, and then they locked the vehicles. I said, look, we're not afraid of burglars, we're afraid of fire. So they had all the keys, in the locks. And then this one fellow, when they all got in the cars, pretty quickly, we were missing one. Where is he? I never found out why. He decided to change his trousers. And when he came running out, literally with his trousers down. And there's a big bushfire exploding everything. Is that, something about the world, they call it Murphy's Law. That's even more powerful than Schrodinger's Law or the law, any law. Werner Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. The most fundamental law of science is Murphy's Law. You all know that, don't you? If it can happen, it will happen. So why you change your trousers? No, I don't felt that's a good idea. We didn't have time to take photographs. Should have done for our record. But anyway, as we all left, did the best we can. Why add anything to the fear of losing a monastery? Is giving out things? Oh no, it's just mums. So, why add fear to things which like loss? I realised even then we're all in it together. And one of the beautiful reflections, being a monk makes life much easier. Because I thought, you look at the flames exploding up there, I thought we'd lose everything. I did anyway, I thought there'd be no monastery left. No monastery, did I say that correctly? What's a monastery? Monastery isn't the buildings. The monastery is not like the hall or a big Buddha statue. A monastery, a Buddhist society of Western Australia, a marriage, a corporation, a life, It's much bigger than that. To me, the monastery is all of the people who visit there, support it, all the monks and nuns who live in those places, all the time people go there on retreats. That's what the monastery is. Even so many times, 'cause I've been there all the time since that thing was built. Actually, I built most of it. But a lot of the time people would come and say, when's the monastery going to be finished? It is finished. I can't see anything. The trees, the atmosphere, the air, the beautiful sense of tranquility. That's a monastery. It's not the buildings which you see. It's the atmosphere, what people feel when they go there. What is the Buddhist Society of Western Australia? What is this place? Is it the buildings? Are these architectural inspirations or monstrosities? It doesn't matter. If you think, what is a monstrosity anyway? A monstrosity is where monsters live. If you want to see a monster, please come in a couple of weeks' time, February the 7th on a Friday night, because that's when we have the line dances. Is February the 7th still?
7th, yeah.
Yeah, that's when the monsters come and turns Dhammaloka Centre into a monstrosity. That's what word monstrosity means, isn't it? Where there's monsters. Well, anyway, I tried my best to crack a few jokes, so it's okay to laugh. Even if you don't find it funny, just out of kindness to me, you can laugh just to, make me feel that all my hard effort is not wasted. So anyhow, this is all the time in life, even when that big fire had gone. I remember telling the other monks who were there, and I mentioned this to them. Okay, I really thought it was going to be totally destroyed. But even if it was, doesn't matter. We just go and build it again. And that's what I was totally prepared to do. Whenever we destroy everything, pause and do it again. Make it even better next time. It wasn't completing the monastery was never completed. This place will never be completed. Your life, work will never be completed. But nevertheless, that kindness will carry on. And that kindness, that is what the real monastery is. The peace, the acceptance. Never feeling that it's all been ruined and it's a total waste of time and, oh, why do I have to keep doing this? You keep doing this because you love doing it. It's worthwhile. It's the kind of emotions which in spirituality we emphasize. In the world we find, no, you don't get enough reward for all the effort you put in. For me, just every time you get exhausted, still you keep on working, keep on going on. That's what I would always do, up to a point. And one day I'll just cark it. I don't think that's going to be this week. I don't think you will let me. When I say that, you won't let me, is that an exaggeration? It's not. A lot of times, have you ever seen this when people are really sick in hospital? They may be really sick in hospital, and then you're by their bedside looking after them and stuff, and as soon as you leave the room, to go get some dinner, that's when the people die. Have you seen that happen before? I've seen that so many times. That's when I tell you guys, the beginning of our rains retreat, that's when we try and do less work, less going outside of our monastery, more teaching, more meditation, more stillness during our rains retreat from July to October. I always tell everybody, we now, the monks and the nuns, are going on retreat. Please, out of kindness to us, you always ask, what can we do for you during a rains retreat? I said, please don't die. it does actually work. If you do the stats, we haven't actually taken down the numbers, but less people die during the range retreat than any other time of the year. Less Buddhists, that is. You're very good, devoted disciples. Well done, congratulations, I'm proud of you. The will to live. That is also really important. Do you want to keep on going? The will to live is important. Know it's there, it can be done, and also, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to add? What happiness are you going to add? I've had so many lovely times just talking about this. There was one lady, one of our strong disciples years ago, and she thought she had bad hay fever. But it got so bad one day she found out it was actually lung cancer. And so by the time she had it looked at, she was really close to death. So I went to go and see her in the hospital, and she said, "Well, I've only got a few weeks to go." And but she was kind of laughing, cracking jokes about it. And she said, please, she was a Thai lady, she said, "Please tell all the Thai ladies, don't come and see me now. Can they come and see me once I'm in my box? And they can see me as much as they like." She meant that. She just wanted a bit of peace and quiet. But then she was planning all the funeral arrangements. She was a very smart lady. And when when I came out of the room, there was this kind of elderly nurse. She saw me, and she actually grabbed me by the shoulder. She was a nurse, she wasn't a Buddhist, and pulled me into this side room. What's she going to do with me? And then she looked at me and said, "I'm so glad you've come, because that lady, she's the worst case of denial I've ever seen." "What do you mean?" We've just been talking about her funeral arrangements. And this nurse was actually kind of gobsmacked. What? She hasn't sort of got angry, upset, even though she's just found out. She wasn't that old. She's going to die in a few weeks. Yeah, she was laughing and cracking jokes. And that nurse, she was a Catholic. She'd never seen anything like that before. And it was real. That lady, for those of you who remember her, Ratana. Remember Ratana? Yeah, so she passed away. As she passed away, I remember her doctor came to the funeral service and said, "She's the first person I've seen who died with class." That's how he put it. Just, without getting upset. And that was her. So anyway, those are the sorts of things. How many of you are going to die? So come on, live up to the reputation of the Buddhist Society of Western Australia. Please die with class. And that way it's just showing that, emotions of fear and disappointment and other stuff which we have, we can always mess around with those and change them. And things we have to do anyway, let's do it well. Let's do it with pizzazz. So anyway, now I've said that, I better be careful. Once I do die, I have to have a special pizzazz. Please, if I die in my coffin, please put a microphone in the coffin so I can give a talk and a few jokes at the very end. Why? Why not? A marriage? The most important thing is not just him or her, it's us, your kids as well. And somebody was saying, what about stepkids? What on earth does that mean? To be step on, or where did that come from? Stepchildren. They're your children, they love you, they care for you. So your kids. I don't care if it's step parents or whatever. And anyway, I know, I've seen this so many times in my life. If you have, you have one father, one one of our monks some years ago, because he was given up by his biological parents, he was adopted, and then his adopted parents split up and they got remarried, and I couldn't imagine just how many parents he had. He had his biological parents he met up with later on, and then his adopted parents, and they split up, so he had a step-adopted father and a step-adopted mother. It just got so complicated. I couldn't figure it out. But God's permission, I can talk about it and crack jokes about it. Why not, just whatever situation you are in life, why not give it some sort of extra special addition to create happiness? One of the last things was, I was going to say about how, I was mentioning this to the monks. This one guy over in Singapore, he was a CEO of the Changi Airport Corporation. And, because he was a Buddhist and I got to know all these people, he came to this little seminar on how to run a business, a Buddhist business. And he was actually a big businessman, just opening up Changi Airport Terminal 4. And he was doing that the next day. And so one of the things he said, that one of his workers said, "Oh, it's not a happy place to work in these businesses over in Singapore." And then he said, "You expect it to be happy." "Yeah. Why don't you add happiness yourself? When you go to that workplace, just make a resolution. Today I'm going to create some happiness with one or two people. And that's the most important part of my work. Doing the job and making some happiness there." It's wonderful when you can create happiness there. Like, "Please excuse me again, but tomorrow, early in the morning, I'm going to the airport again. I've got terminal disease. I'm always going to the terminals." But I'm actually going tomorrow morning again. But sometimes, because you go to these places often, it's not excitement you have, "Here we go again," having everything checked out. And I can still remember going through the airport recently, and they said, "In your bag," this is my baggage, as you all know. And they said, "In your bag, sir, have you got any prohibited items?" I said, No. Just, I said, "What about hair gel?" And I couldn't help but crack up and say, "Oh, seriously?" And all the people in the queue behind me, they all cracked up too, so I'll go through. But before actually going through, I did thank him. I said, "Thank you for making my day." And all these people behind me, "Oh, no worries, sir." That's how you add happiness, to whatever you have to do in life. They always see some funny side to whatever you have to do. Even, he's not here today, good old Dennis Shepherd, in some of the marriage stories, because I used to do the blessing, he used to be the legal part, Dennis, and so often he made mistakes. I remember doing the ordinary marriage service, and at the end of the marriage service, he was just about to say, "And now I present to you Mr. and Mrs." I said, "Dennis, you forgot the rings." "Oh yeah, sorry." He forgot to do the exchange of rings. But that's not as good as this other marriage ceremony I went to. When they realized that they'd ordered these rings, but there was some sort of problem over there, so they didn't arrive in time. So they decided to go ahead with the marriage anyway. Instead of exchanging rings, they're exchanging these like cream puff buns. He said, "With this cream puff I do you wed." Well, that's brilliant. So you don't just get upset and think, "Oh, the whole thing has to be cancelled." You can always innovate. innovate and use something which no one's ever used that before. It's a marriage which you'll never forget. And I love things like that. Or just like, again, the funeral. Oh, they're not here today. At least one of them. The funeral is my fault, honestly, because I told at a funeral service, you can actually make the coffin yourself. So I found that out, so I told this lady whose husband had died, and he was like a white water rafter. So I decided to make a coffin the same in the shape of a boat with a couple of paddles on top. Only trouble is, it was the right size, totally legal, but it weighed a ton. They made it out of jarrah wood. And it was so heavy, I thought we'd kill a couple of the pallbearers as they took it. And the worst part about it is that once it was put on the conveyor belt thing, then I pressed a button to commit the coffin, and the motor wasn't strong enough, and it was struggling to go through, to the place where it was going to get burnt, and it was struggling, and the thing opened up, but it was going really, very slowly. And then it came back and it went crash into the coffin. And the coffin couldn't move. It was half in and half out. I was over in Fremantle. What do you do? The funeral directors aren't very helpful. They're just looking at us, oh my God, what are we going to do now? It's all gone wrong. But the wife who comes here, Jenny, she's not here tonight. But anyway, she jumped up on top of the coffin and tried to push it through. And her very kind friends shouted out at her, "You're trying to get rid of him that much." Trying to and that just started it. Somebody else shouted out, "Yeah, no, the first day he had a car, he crashed it. The first day in his coffin, he's crashed that too." Typical. And that was probably the most joyful funeral I've ever attended. It was actually beautiful. And that's certainly how I'd like to be remembered. Wouldn't it be like how you like to be remembered? It's what you add to things. That is what really stands out. And I better stop adding to things because it goes on and on and on all night. And I've got a flight to catch tomorrow morning. So thank you all for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That's why I had the 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, any questions from the audience or from the computer? Could we do the computer ones first, Eddie? Where's Eddie gone? Oh, he's over there. Oh my goodness. From Germany. Dear Ajahn, please what can you say more about self-compassion, how to generate it and how to increase it, to protect myself and help others? Okay, for self-compassion, one of the things, and I mean this, first thing in the morning, simple things. Go to the bathroom, look at yourself in the mirror and smile. I did that for 2 years, honestly, when I was a student, and when I find it hard to smile. And they just get stuck like this. You're smiling. It doesn't cost anything. You get the habit. You're actually such a kind thing to give to yourself. Number 2, always understand the simile of the tree in the forest. I've never seen a perfect tree in the forest. They're all bent and crooked. I've never seen a perfect monk. Look in the mirror at you, Brahm. They're all bent and crooked. I don't mean just, in a bad way. But they're never perfect. So take away your ideas of perfection. That's self-compassion and kindness. From Sweden. Dear Ajahn, you told us that harmony is more important than the truth in a career company setting. Should I sacrifice my ideals for the sake of harmony? How can we be kind to another at the same time also be kind to ourselves if the person insists on their view? It's how you convince others. Honestly, one of the persons, you've heard this story so many times, Ajahn Jakaro, he was one of the first monks over here, and he disrobed eventually. He left me in the poo. I had to take over as being the abbot. I was doing so well being the second monk. Being the second monk, it's like, the monk in the front gets all the flies on the windscreen. I was tailgating, having a wonderful time. But then, eventually, I knew how to get my own way. Can you close your ears so you don't hear this? No, the other must get their own way. So whenever I wanted to build something, I said, why don't we build a hut over there on the hill? He said, no, that's a stupid idea. It just won't work. No, definitely not. I had the wisdom to know how the mind works. You would not repeat it until you thought he'd totally forgotten it. About 2 or 3 weeks later, walking in the monastery again, I think we should build a hut over here. He never actually said, I told you no before. He'd forgotten it by this time. So he said, no, that won't work. I think that's a silly idea. We can build it somewhere else. Oh yeah, probably you're right. I only had to repeat it a 3rd time at most. But most of the time, those 2 times were enough. I'd be walking with him, and he'd look at me and said, Ajahn Brahm, I think we should build a hut over there. You know how advertising works. You make the suggestion, but you don't over-make the suggestion. Otherwise, people understand what you're up to. That's how it works. That's how I got people to work so hard being president of our Buddhist society. I did to do old Rachel Green, because she was a very successful business lady, and I asked her, I said, I think you make an excellent president of the Buddhist Society of Western Australia. This is a true story. And she said, no, don't be silly, I work too hard. No, it's just, I can't take on anymore. I looked at her and said, actually, no, you're right, I should never have asked you. And I said, no, okay, you're banned. I won't let you, because even if you nominate now, I will delete the nomination. You can't stand. You know what happened next? She went back home and said, he can't say that to me. So she nominated, she became our president that time. Remember Rachel? Yeah, good president. That's how it works. So if I say to any one of you, no, you must not be our treasurer next year. Okay? I'll leave it there. Be careful. Anyhow, that's, other questions. What am I supposed to be doing? Question from Poland to Ajahn. How to help my grandma who is less and less able to move, cook, eat? How to help her mind and spirit? She's not a Buddhist. Doesn't matter if she's not a Buddhist, she's a human being. Just be kind to her, be peaceful. That's one of the reasons why I've told a lot of people over in monastery that when I come off my retreat, there was a message from my brother over in London that my auntie had passed away. 99 years of age. And she's one of these, I have to tell you these stories about her. She was like, she wasn't really my mother's sister, mother's cousin, but they grew up as sisters after the Second World War. And, just that's when they were maturing, looking for a partner in life. But before actually going to a dance, which they used to find their partners in those days, they went to one of these mediums. And the medium took one look at my auntie, her name was Opal, O-P-A-L, and said, you are going to very soon meet the love of your life and marry him. Oh yeah. Has anyone ever said that to you? So yeah. But then this medium was specific. His name is going to be first name Donald, surname Wolfreys, W-O-L-F-R-E-Y-S. She eventually married him. She married him, I think, the next day. And I asked my mother, who was there at the time. My mother doesn't lie to me. She said, did that actually happen? Oh yeah. And I asked, well, what was it like when this guy asked to dance with you, to my auntie? And of course you exchange name. What's your name? Opal. What's your name? Donald. Donald who? Donald Wolfries. Did you have a heart attack or something? And it was absolutely, totally true. And I don't know how many times you asked your mother that. And she said, no, that happened. But anyway, this is my auntie. She just died a few days ago. But how she died was really interesting. She was living by herself until I think about 6 or 7 months ago. 98, still managing to get around, easy enough. She had carers, look after her every now and again. But decided to move her to a care home close to one of her sons. And one morning she was just going down to breakfast in the care home, sat down at the table, and then just stopped breathing. No pain, no sort of gasping or crying or anything, just closed her eyes, and that was it. She's gone, dead. What a wonderful way to die. The only thing is, I told a lot of people, it'd be probably better if you die after breakfast. Rather There's a class of ghosts we have in Buddhism called hungry ghosts. Okay, I won't go there anymore. But how to keep your grandma, just be kind to her, show a lot of love and peace and whatever. From Sri Lanka, can avoiding worldly information on the internet fast-track the path to Nibbana, or should we allow some space for worldly information like news? What's the middle way for using the internet? That's up to you. See how it affects you. What's more important, depends upon your age or what you're actually doing. If you happen to be a presenter on Sri Lankan TV, then doing the worldly news, it would be a good idea to find out what's actually happening. But when I was a young monk, we didn't have any possibility of hearing the news. And that's why I was really surprised. Somebody came in to the monastery in Northeast Thailand one day and they said, "Oh, Ajahn Brahm, you were born in England, weren't you?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, do you know your country's at war with Argentina?" "Oh, yeah, sure. We don't do wars anymore." He said, "It's true, you are." I thought, "No, come on. You can't trick me that easily." And it was happening, because sometimes when you don't look at the news, you don't worry about it. Not only that, but when you start looking at the news and you go on a retreat for a few months and you look at the news again, you find it's the same stories. It happens in different countries, different actors, but it's basically the same play. Corruption, love, missing out on love, death, birth. Same stories, just different actors. And lastly, from Mal. Can you please let me know what should we do with a person's ashes after cremation according to Buddhist traditions? Thank you. People have all sorts of Buddhist traditions, and it doesn't really matter what makes sense to you, what they wished to have done. Sometimes they sprinkle them somewhere, sometimes they put them in the ocean, sometimes they keep them in a little box. One of the things which we tried to do was to have the ashes in the wall of the monastery. The reason we decided to do that years and years and years ago, because we thought with all those ghosts or heavenly beings protecting the monastery, no burglars would ever dare come in to give us any trouble. Is that a good idea? Yeah, but no, because people, they don't stay as ghosts long enough. So they disappear after a while. So that didn't work. But wherever you find it, people say so every now and again they want to go back to pay respects to their loved ones. But honestly, do you do that? First few years maybe, and after a while, other parts of life take over. So the ashes, it's nice to dispose of them in a nice place, but not sort of make a big deal about it. For me, I don't want to be cremated. I want to be mulched. Mulch is much nicer. You get mulched and it goes right onto the bushes and the trees. Wouldn't that be a wonderful way to go? No. I mean, once you're dead, not before you're dead. Anyway, I think that's enough there. Did you want to ask a question? Yeah. Go on. Okay.
Ajahn Brahm, the question that I'm going to ask you is whether you believe, there is any divine or karmic protection or not. Okay, yeah. Just now you mentioned about the fire that swept through Bodhinyana Monastery, 1991. Yeah. I saw it all day. The next day I was there, my car was full of water. I went up, okay. When I reached the monastery, I saw, the kitchen area where the monks, where they cook and monks have food, this thing. It was intact. Intact, and then the trees around, all was all burned down,
Yeah.
grayish. And then the trees were all green, and then the green, and the center was intact, And then I went up to the hall, the building was intact. As there's only at the glass, the window at the end, there's only a small one line crack. That's all the thing, Okay, just one moment. So it's what I read in YouTube, now the fire in Los Angeles, they say that these celebrities, okay, who's done good karmic, good charitable work, their homes are all protected.
That's what they call it.
So do you believe in that's a...
What does the name mean? Los Angeles, the angels. Yeah, of course.
There is protection, isn't it? Do you think?
There is, yes. But you can't rely upon that. You have to be really good people.
Yeah, so are the good people too. So if you're a kind person, or all the good things, you're also protected with good health too.
Yep. Up to a point.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Going. Okay, can we finish? Oh, one more, yeah. Go on. Maybe it's the last question, because I do have to get up early in the morning.
You spoke briefly about making decisions without regret. I was just wondering if there's anything deeper than currently my perspective on it is to avoid making certain negative decisions, to analyze one's values and where they're operating from in order to make sure that they're not falling to, say, peer pressure or some undue influence. Do you think there's anything more that we could do?
Well, basically this is what I do, what I encourage other people to do. But sometimes if you think about it, analyze it, it gets way too complicated. It's much better to feel it. Does that make any sense to you? You feel it. Is this a good thing which I'm doing? Or is it a bad thing which I'm doing? You feel it inside your heart. And I remember that story which I quoted. Somebody, I think I saw a write-up of it. It was a documentary somebody did about the My Lai massacre in Vietnam during the Vietnam War with a group of American soldiers under Lieutenant Kelly. I still remember his name. They went into a village in Vietnam with the orders to kill every man, woman and child indiscriminately. It's supposed to be a hotbed of the Viet Cong. And so most of them went in there to follow those orders. One or two people didn't. And one of those was this Afro-American soldier who point blank refused. He was put in military jail because of that refusal to refuse to follow an order during wartime. And they interviewed as many people they could find as possible to see what the effect was. And just about every person in that army unit were just really emotionally, psychologically a mess, saying it sort of grossly. But this African-American soldier, he said he actually had a beautiful life. And they asked him, why did you do that? Were you some religious nut or something? refused an order. Did you realise what was going to happen to you? He said, "Oh, you realised everything which was going to happen to me, going to jail." But also, I just could not do that. It was wrong. I was not religious at all. I just joined the army just to get a job, to get a life. I was, from the ghettos. I didn't go to any church, have any religious affiliation. I did that because it never felt right. And I'm sure each one of you have had those times, those choices, where you're about to do something. Did it feel right? I put my hand over here because that's where I locate just the centre, for me anyway, for kindness and gentleness, compassion. And all the time that's what I try and do, just feel it first. And once you feel it, you know this is right. Like the ordination of bhikkhunis. For me it felt right. That's what I trusted, more than anything else. The other details, the analysis, we can analyse that afterwards. And I always found out this is very trustworthy.
I'll just also add on there that that's also been a bit of my experience in terms of the longer you allow yourself to sit and ruminate in what appears to be logic, but we also have to understand that our notion of logic is also informed by our emotions. It gives more room to be drawn down a path that we might otherwise not have taken instead of listening to that core belief. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally with you there. Because sometimes you get some really complicated ethical questions. If I try to analyse it, trying to look in the books, trying to get some answers from others, it just gives you just headaches and no clarity. It's just the same as our Buddhist society and our committee. Isn't it more wonderful just to see, feel it? What does it feel like? You usually get answers much quicker. And they always tend to be the ones which are correct.
I'll also end on this as well, what you said about being mulched. I have a joke with my friends that at my funeral there will be a wood chipper, and anyone in the front row, there will be raincoats provided.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well please thank you all for coming. And again, extra 13 minutes. I hope that's not too long for our hard-working caretakers. So thank you everybody, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.